thank you all for coming today. I'm Christy. I'm doing part of the program. I work upstairs, and we help come find these people here. And I want to thank the Friends of the East Long Meadow Public Library, who are tremendous supporters and bring these programs here. So without further ado, we have Mark Goskowitz.
Got it.
I did it. From Tri-Cable League. And he's gonna just wow us. So I'm gonna let him take it away and give us a little bio, right? Yeah. He's a teacher. He's used to that.
Hi, folks. Thanks for coming. Cool. I start off just before like the me and everything stuff. Just I'm a teacher. So I'm a high school math teacher. I taught middle school for 20 years, and all of these classes that I teach were classes that I taught with students in my school. I started a school farm garden program and everything. So it's minus the chickens and minus the bees. The principals never want to have the animals on site. Oh my God! But like the kids want to. The thing is, with me being a teacher, all those little codes, those little QR codes that you saw right there, it's okay if you don't know how they work. Like you take your smartphone like you're going to take a picture of somebody, but instead of taking a picture, you use the camera on the code, and a little link pops up. You click on the link, and bam, you've got this presentation. And then the other link, you click on it, and you've got the handouts. Oh, it's amazing, right? The thing is that it's a live document. If somebody's like, oh my God, could you add this to it? I add it to it. There's links in here. I am a flow state of mind presenter. So like, I don't hit on everything every time. And people like pop their hands up, and I just know that this isn't necessarily a class where you're like, my beans never work. What can I do about my beans? It is a general, I don't want to get into the weeds on too many things, but I try to type out some stuff. And I like to curate resources and put like links to products and stuff like that that'll make it, look at this, it's 10 pages of stuff, oh my gosh. So there's a lot of stuff with gardening. Also embedded within here, if you gotta leave or whatever, there's a recording somewhere in there. There's a link to a recording of me doing this, but you also got the recording of this that's gonna be. The point is that I try to put together a lot of resources. With any of the classes that I teach, I do travel around. I was just at Sudbury last night. I'm from Connecticut, so it's like what 2 Massachusetts days in a row. It's great. I travel around. If there's another class that you want to see me do, like you said, you missed me at, I forgot, Wilbraham. And see, there we go. You jogged my memory though. Anyway, I travel around doing these classes in the night when I'm not teaching at school. And so if you want to see these for free, I leave a public calendar here. The other shameless plug is that I also have them all pre-recorded. If you want the handouts and all that jazz for any other class and you can't make it to one, that's the shameless plug of how I make a little money on the side. All right, so it's a business, right? Okay. So one other little plug as we just dive in. I do keep these up here as a size reference. When we're talking about container gardening, we're talking about different sized containers to set your plants up for success. They don't have to be these types of containers. But when we talk about something that's like 10 gallons, it's like, well, how big is 10 gallons? And it's like, well, something about that big. That's the volume of about 10 gallons, and that's double the amount, 20 gallons. And there's your 7, your 5, and your 3. Like, once we get to like this is like the size of like a hanging basket. It's so like, but I do focus on veggies in this class because veggies are heavy feeders. And if we can set containers up for success with veggies, flowers are in general, flowers are a breeze, herbs are a breeze. And we'll talk about those variables. The one little plug is that if you like these and you want to like take them to like your deck and be like, I need more of this size. That's what I put together a little bundle that I sell. After class you can buy it if you want it or whatever, where you could leave with a bundle, and that way you can see, okay, this is what I like, these are the sizes that I need. Anyway, this is what I got going on. My God, it's like magical. That's my house. That's my greenhouse. I built that last summer. That was a fun project. And then I am like doing mushroom logs like crazy right now because it's the time to grow mushrooms. But I do a lot of outdoor gardening. Container gardening is something that I did a lot of when I lived in an apartment. All right, my container gardening days are not over, but like I am strategically doing specific things in containers that I want to bring closer to my house. All right, so I want to recognize that like my garden, I'm starting seeds in here. not everybody's starting, so that's pictures taken at night, those trays, because like I teach a class and then at night I'm like, I still got to start my seeds. So I start my seeds, put them in there and everything, and then I get them in the ground, and that's my like little no-till garden. It's, you know, I love it, and you know, these are my spring crops. The point with this is that like everything, all of these plants that are here in my garden, this could be somebody's deck. And like these plants do very well in containers, all right? They're you know, and many of the garden plants that we have in a garden can do well in containers, but then there are some that like they're a poor match. And we're gonna be really struggling if we try to grow those plants in containers. It's either because they have deep, big root systems, and it's really hard to provide big, deep root systems with containers, or they're heavy feeders, and whatever we put in this container is what the plant gets. Unless, who was my lazy friend yeah, oh, that's right, it's okay, you're not lazy. But you and I was like, well, yeah, maybe amend the soil. You're like, no, we're not amending the soil. This is like set it and forget it gardening, right? Because it's not that we're lazy, it's that we've got a life. All right, let's keep going. What else we got? But like, yeah, a little harvest like that, yeah, you get some chickens. My God, that's the best thing in the world. My containers right now, I want to grow some strawberries. So the other night, there's my kiddos' legs. This is just a couple nights ago. I was filling up this and shoving little strawberry plants into these bags. And you see how they have like the little slits on them? I actually still have extra strawberry plants, and so my plan is to take, I think I got enough to do it in this or in this one, and just cut those little slits here. Fill the whole darn thing up, plant strawberries all in the top, and then plant strawberries all over. It's gonna be a basket of strawberries. And it's, yeah, basically I'm just like shoving it in the hole, and before I fill it up with soil, I'm gonna try and spread those roots out. My hands were dirty. I was lucky to get a picture of that, but I do like to fan those roots out and then cover it with soil, and then that's what they look like. I have them just kind of sitting against the fence, watered, and once they start to like grow and everything, that's where they'll find their permanent home, hanging. The vision is that these are going to be hanging on the corners of my greenhouse. You all right? You get the prettiness thing? All right. What is it? Like, I found this in the woods. What is it? It's a piece of tree that in a storm, it smacked against another tree. So it's a whole limb smacked against, and the heartwood from it flew out, and it created like a gutter. It created like this cool little gutter. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to plant strawberries in that. Because here's the thing. There's a common method for container gardening for growing herbs and stuff like that, and leafy veggies like salad greens in gutters, old gutters, because they have shallow root systems. Strawberries that are fruiting this year, that are like ever-bearing strawberries, they don't need big, deep root systems. They'll do well in that gutter, and it'll be just like, do you get that I'm really digging container gardening with strawberries? Okay. It's what happens when you buy 100 strawberry plants. You're like, okay, where are we going to put them all? All right, so okay. 2 awesome books that go along with this. We're at a library, okay? These are linked in the resources, but if you've never heard of these, a lot of people have heard of this one. Square Foot Gardener folks, who's heard of it, taken off the shelf, you own it or whatever. This is the 3rd edition. I owned the first, passed down to me from my father. I owned the second one, and then a 3rd one came out. I was like, should I get that? I got it through the interlibrary loan. I was like, oh my God, this is the best version. You're going to see pictures of this later on. Any slide that has like green tables and stuff like that. This one and this one both help you with timing stuff. Timing things so that you plant things not too early, so that you're not doing your tomatoes in January or February, and then they grow tall and skinny and thin, and then they never make it to the garden. It'll tell, so like books like this, the Week by Week Vegetable Gardener is one that definitely, it tells you week by week what you could be doing. This one also has, the Square Foot Gardener is about square foot gardening. You look at a container like this and it's like, oh, that's like 3 or 4 square feet. Like this one there, that's like a square foot. It tells you how many of each type of plant. You look up the plant that you have that you want to grow in a container, and it tells you about how many you can put in there, because we're gardeners and we put too many plants together. And when we put too many plants together, they compete for light. one reaches out to the other. It's okay. One reaches out to the other, and their leaves are solar panels trying to pull in light. And when they brush up against another plant, what they do instead of growing out is growing up. So, and they get tall and spindly instead of big, wide bushes taking in lots of light. Okay, anyway, 2 amazing books. And I think this one is from a Massachusetts father-daughter combo. The week by, yes, Western Massachusetts. Father-daughter combo who wrote that book. And so if I look at like now in this book, it's saying like out in the garden, we're like, so are you guys done with frost? We're done with frost. Or are we like who knows still? No, for real, are you guys still who knows? Or are we pretty much done? Yeah, okay, all right. I don't know. You're just a bit further north than me. So this book, you calibrate it to your last frost date. So I got pictures of it. So, 9 to 7 weeks before the average last frost, you find when your average frost is, you work backwards in the calendar, you write it in once, and then you have it in here. It's a journal. It's a journal. So as a class, I like to put together curated resources that have helped me become a better gardener. That's where I want to point you to. So I don't want to spend too much time on it other than letting you know that this book tells you when to do things and when you're going to get the timing right based on wherever you are. So you move to upstate Vermont or you move somewhere else, you calibrate it to your last frost date. You send this to a friend who lives out in Oregon. They calibrate it to their last frost date. All right, so we move on. Oh, it also has awesome things to do. Oh, okay. Light is food. Imagine the amount of energy that thing emits. A species that advances ours one day will amass sufficient knowledge to harness it. Tree amateurs. I don't know, do we got the rights to use that? No. But anyway, when I look at this, light is food. That's my mantra. In teaching gardening classes, that's what I want you to always have in the back of your mind. Light is food. If you're putting containers in a shady spot, you are depriving the plant that wants light from its food. It doesn't matter what you put in the soil at that point if you're putting it in darkness. So here's the thing, is that we're going to try and also decode this. What kinds of plants can get away with less light, and what kinds of plants definitely really need a lot of light? Remember that I'm going to focus on veggies and stuff like that, but you can generalize this. So this is not a class about tilling or digging. It's also not a class that's about raised beds. So I do want to recognize that there are some people who come to this class and they're like, yeah, I got raised beds. I want to get my container garden going. A tomato plant that's growing in a raised bed can tap into the resources that are below the raised bed. That means it's just a regular garden, right? A container garden, the plant that's in here can't do anything. It's stuck. So that's what I mean. And so that then the contrast is this. That's like uber container garden. It's lifted off the floor. That's from the Square Foot Gardener. It's like a handicap accessible container. This one's a big one. Look at how it's like a foot deep. I want you to imagine how that's constructed. That had better be something that the middle of it, when it gets sopping wet with rainwater, and that soil gets really heavy, that had better not snag and snap. It had better have some cross bracing in it. Those corners and everything, they look like they're sturdy. This had better be able to take me as a shake test, me hopping in it, shaking it around, and it should be able to stand up if we're doing something like that. Many containers that get big, they're just best on the ground. You're going to find the place where they live, and they're going to live there because they're heavy once they get wet. But yeah, containers. I do want to recognize, container garden, absolutely. These are living their entire life all summer long in there. Everything that they need is in there except my background, tapping into this, was I used to work in a commercial greenhouse, Hart's Greenhouse and Florist in Canterbury, Connecticut. Probably don't know it, but it's a lovely place. I also worked on an organic farm. That's my official background. And then we ran a farm, my wife and I. My job one summer was just taking a watering wand and watering everything. Everything needs to be watered. And the smart gardener, florists, they have the irrigation systems where these are automatically watered. But the thing is that containers dry out. I have this picture here. to illustrate that, like, we're going to need to water. We're going to need to make sure we put these in full sun. And one thing that you don't see that's happening that makes these so big, vibrant, and ready to grow is that the boss who's running this, whether it's Dave or Joyce Hart, one of them would go over and flip. They had a 50-gallon barrel, and that 50-gallon barrel was filled with fertilizer that got pumped into the water lines once a week. Once a week, they would flip that on, and it would go clicking and pumping fertilizer into the water as I was watering. You as the home gardener, if you really want your plants to like thrive like this, we're going to have to either set up a soil system. So I'm setting the tone for, like, if you can stay till the end. We'll talk about a soil system that you can put in your container that should be able to feed it for the majority of the season for most crops. The heaviest feeding crops. You want to grow the biggest, best tomatoes? You are going to have to add more fertility throughout the season because they're going to pull so much from the soil. Does that kind of make sense? Okay, all right. And if you want big, beautiful blooms, then you might be the person who learns how to do a little bit of fertilizer in your water. I'm not talking Miracle-Gro, all right? I'm going to show you organic methods. My background is organic farming, all right? So even though I worked in conventional farms, okay, so all day long. We're going to talk about these. Plant choice, and we spend a lot of time on that because we're going to generalize what types of plants do we choose to set up for success in containers. And anything that we talk about for that is going to also open your mind in your regular garden. How many of you got regular gardens that aren't containers? We're going to make you better gardeners, okay? And how many of you already got containers going? It's just good to know. And who are the people, future ones? You don't got anything going yet, but you want to. You're here. That's good. That's like more than half of you. That's awesome. All right, or about half of you. All right, so we'll talk about plant choice, the right container, volume and drainage and stuff like that, and the size, and then the soil conditions. And then how do we reset everything and how we maintain it? And it's, that's the daily task. That's the joy of being outside with the things that you're growing. I'm going to skip past this. And then, okay. So what are things that do well in containers? Herbs, all day long, herbs. You can go to Big Y down the road or wherever, and they got herbs in the store that you can buy all year long because they can do well on your windowsill. They're already grown to like a full height in the middle of winter. They don't need any more sun. They just need to just kind of like hang out in your house, and then you snip them and you eat them. What does it take for an herb to be successful? Like that basil. What does it take for basil to be successful? The seeds need to germinate, and that's whether you do that or not, or you buy the plant and it's already started. Great, the garden center did it for you. That's okay. That needs to happen. Then the little leaves need to come out, gather sunlight because light is food, put that energy into growing new leaves, and then there's a point where you're like, that's big enough, yum yum, and you eat it. Isn't that what an herb is? You cut it at some point, and then you're like, and then it grows back, and it just repeats that part. Does it have to flower? No, it doesn't have to have much longer of a life. We go to tomatoes. Tomatoes are at the opposite end of the spectrum. A tomato to be successful not only has to germinate, the seed has to germinate, has to grow, get bigger, the whole plant has to get bigger, put out its little leaves to photosynthesize, pull in energy, but then it has to grow to a mature height to then it can flower. And a lot of time's got to go by for that to get to the size enough to flower. Then the flowers, they're generally self-pollinated in these. Some flowers need to be pollinated. Then that flower needs to develop into a fruit. And that takes even longer. When we look at all these, this is like a harvest, like at my house. Love it, and like in my little garden, lots of different types of tomatoes and everything. Which are the ones that are going to do best in containers? The smaller tomatoes. If you want to have success, go with smaller fruits. So that means just looking for cherry tomatoes, choosing plum tomatoes or paste tomatoes over the big beefsteak tomatoes. Save the beefsteak tomatoes for your garden. Is that to say it's impossible? No, it's not impossible. There are online folks who are posting their success with their beefsteak tomatoes in giant containers and everything. But do you hear the rhythm of things? Is that if you want success with them, go with the smaller fruit. It's going to take less time for the fruit to mature. And it's going to need less resources. tomatoes are good in containers because they're also part of this family. Peppers, tomatoes, and eggplant, and potatoes. I don't know if you know, they're all related. They're all part of the nightshade family, okay? All right, so there are different families that use similar nutrients. They also have similar pests, but they have similar growth habits. Although potatoes, you're like, that doesn't have the same growth. No, they're all related. Why do these do well in general in containers? Because they can tolerate our neglect. That's what it comes down to. A tomato plant can kind of dry out a bit. You know, it can get like really dry, and then you're like, oh crap, and you rescue it and you water it, and it's like, thanks, and then it keeps growing. And the same thing with peppers. Peppers can deal with some drought. Eggplant can deal with some drought. Now, when we're looking at these, these types of fruit, not the big, look at how those didn't size up. Okay, it is harder to grow. That's supposed to be like the big mama jamas from the grocery store, but it didn't size up in my yard because it just takes longer, and you need a bigger plant to size up. These, though, they're super prolific, these Asian style eggplants. Same thing with peppers. The smaller pepper, the more success you're gonna have. Go with the little hot peppers, little sweet peppers, all right? What I will say is that also go with green peppers. Why? Green peppers, if you let them mature and they stay on long enough, like another 3 weeks or a month, oh, they'll turn red or yellow or what. Don't worry, just leave them, they'll turn. Did you know that like chipotle powder is just jalapenos that have turned red? Yeah, it's the same darn thing, all right, but you get a different flavor profile. And you know that a green pepper and a red pepper, green and red bell peppers taste different, all right? But my point is, go with the smaller varieties if you can for success in containers, okay? All right, potatoes can do well in containers. We'll talk a little bit about planting potatoes. What else does well is root crops. In general, what does it take for radishes or beets or onions and garlic to be successful in a container? Is the seeds need to germinate, and they have very small, even though it's like a bulbous root, they have small root systems. They can deal with being kind of cramped together. Shallots and stuff like that, shallots are amazing and do well, and garlic does amazing. You can fit a lot of them in a small space, big bang for your buck. You get those aromatics grown right at your door. And I mean, one of my favorite things, radishes, these little radishes, when you plant those seeds, 30 days later, you got radishes. Yeah, quick turn and investment. So the pot over here that might have a tomato plant in it or a couple pepper plants in here, it's going to take a while for them to grow. So why not plant something that's fast growing underneath them? You'll harvest them, and then the tomatoes and all that will keep growing. That in containers, you have the opportunity to do that with a lot of different crops. And what's another crop that you can do that with? Let's see, so we got root crop, there is leafy crops. Again, what does it take for leafy crops to be successful? They have to grow leaves and then you eat them. Depends on how big. Kale, you can eat kale when it's little small. It's also sweeter when it's smaller, oh my God. And these are like cooking greens. A lot of these are cooking greens, except for lettuce, of course. But the cooking or braising greens and everything. These tend to do well in containers because they don't have big root systems, they're not heavy feeders, and they just need to grow to a certain height where you're ready to pick them. These are also great cool weather crops. Every single one of these are things that you could have been growing in March. You could have started the seeds in March and you'd be eating it right now, which is fine. It's okay if you missed the boat on it. Go ahead and start planting some of these for the fall. I teach a season extension class if you want to do the fall growing. Okay, anyway, so beans and peas do well. I will say that the bang for your buck on these is more that you're just going to get a handful every now and then. In containers, you need a lot of containers to get a meal's worth of beans and peas. You definitely, in containers, you can get meals worth of salads and cooking greens from them, but beans and peas and stuff, at least with peas, you could put this near a deck rail and have it climb up the deck rail, and you get the vertical part of it, pulling in light. What else does well? Everything in this. This is a recipe for making pickles. I teach a pickling class and making kosher dills and stuff like that. Yeah. So cucumbers, we're not in containers. Choose smaller bush variety. These either the pickling cucumbers. They're called pickling because they're like the right size for, they're also like a nice tough texture. They deal well with the pickling process. All of these, the dill, the jalapenos, the garlic, the onion, that's a store-bought onion. The other stuff is from my garden. To get onions like that, it takes something to get onions like that. But anyway, like everything else, that's from my garden, and all of these can do well in containers. Cucumbers and that family of stuff just go smaller with things. So if you're going down the road of strawberries, dwarf trees, there are people who keep like fig trees. Fig trees, is anybody ever done that? I don't know. Fig trees in containers can work. There are some people who like to do citrus trees and stuff like that. I just saw a whole bunch of Tractor Supply, and I was tempted, but then I'm like, you don't belong in Connecticut. And then I was like, so that is one of my rules. One of my rules is if it's something growing here, it needs to be able to survive without my babying it. All right, so I do have fig trees planted at my house, but they are hardy figs, and I maintain them so they can live outside on their own. I just put a whole bunch of straw on them. I have friends who have had fig trees, and I know we're on like a blank slide here, but they have fig trees in giant containers like this that are super heavy. You know the plastic containers that have the rope handles? From like an old-fashioned kegger. All right, so those things, is each one of their fig trees is planted in one of those. And every summer they bring it outside, every spring they bring it outside, put it on the lawn, it grows, and it grows figs. And because it's not a cold, hardy, it can't survive our winters, they bring it back in and put it in their basement or in their garage every year. They did that for a long time. Josh did that for a long time. And then I think eventually it got like too old to do that. And I think they stopped doing it. Anyway, strawberries. If you're looking for, I got my strawberry plants from Fedco. Right now, a lot of fruits and stuff, they're already sold out. So sorry, everybody's planting. But next, January, next Christmas, go ahead and start putting your orders in. Fedco is an awesome company. If you've never heard of them, you can also buy in bulk from them, buying lots. Grow Organic has good stuff. They also have good videos. That's why I'm letting you know about it, if you want to learn how to grow some stuff. Norse. So Norse is one where I usually get my strawberry plants from, and you can buy in. You can get 100 plants for $38. That's awesome. You can go to Tractor Supply, and get like 10 plants for like, I don't know, 15 or 20 bucks. But like here, it's definitely a better buy. We'll skip that. But yes, homegrown strawberries are amazing. We go to plants to avoid. So just to summarize, plants that do well in containers. And in general, people who are new to gardening, plants that are going to be easy to grow are going to be plants that are either smaller scale plants. So generalize this to flowers, all right? So if you look at the little label on a flower and it says it's going to grow 6 inches or 12 inches tall, that's a small flower plant. If it's going to grow, 24, 48 inches taller, so that then starts to mean that you're going to have to either size up your container or consider to put that in a garden bed. All right, and then if it's like a sunflower, you could grow sunflowers in these. But you grow the big mammoth sunflowers that go 12 feet high. They're really fun. They're super fun with kids. Oh my God, and then at the end of the season, you got the birds on them and everything. All right, anyway, they're really fun. But the wind will blow them over in a container. The whole thing will tip over. You'll be fighting with standing them up all the time. Anyway. The things that do best in containers are things that need to just grow leaves or have small fruits, all right, or small scale things. So that's what you're looking for. I want you to notice how, in general, I really didn't talk about perennial stuff in containers. Perennials really do best in the ground where they can live season after season. So I have had people be like, well, to quiz me on perennials in containers. It's not my wheelhouse. Okay, plants to avoid. It's not that they're impossible, some are, but they can be advanced. And so I used the early days of AI last year to give me images of these. If you notice, some of the other pictures were like my little watercolors. This is like garbage art, okay? So That's what AI thought corn was. It's a lot better now. But I'm keeping that in there because I'm going to show the computer it didn't know what corn was. Look, like where's the tassels? Where's the tassels? Where's the silks? The silks. We got the tassels up here and the silks here. There are people, so the reason I talk about this is that if you start to Google container gardens, you're going to get people from all around the country, all different environments talking about growing corn and growing other things that they, like asparagus in containers and corn in containers. And it's like, why pumpkins in containers? We'll talk about why each one's not a good fit. They're going to be tough to grow in containers. Corn, why? It's not that it's impossible, but this is an agricultural area, right? Like you're bordering like the agricultural area of Connecticut, right? Near the Connecticut River. This is flatland, right? So, right? It ain't Vermont. But corn, if you were to plant it, corn likes to be planted densely. Imagine a cornfield. The silks, each silk, when you peel a corn, have you ever peeled a corn and it's not developed? You're like, oh man, I didn't get my money's worth. And it's like, here's the thing. That corn that wasn't developed, pollen from the tassels falls and gets wind pollinated and hits each silk. Each silk goes to a kernel. And so, like, this is the ah moment. Go ahead, ah, oh. Okay, so each, it's okay, we gotta keep it live, all right? If you didn't know it, like each corn kernel attaches to a silk and has to get pollinated. Where did that like half-naked like ear of corn come from? It came from the edge of the field, or it came from the upwind side of the field. The farmer's hands are just going to be picking all the corn, because they got to get the bushels. You know, they don't stop until they get 5 bushels or 5 bags or sacks to bring to market. So they're going to pick the corn that's at the edge, all right? Do you see why this isn't going to do well in a container garden? It's meant for acreage. It's meant to be wind pollinated. How could you make this work? You snap the tassel off, or you shake this tassel so that, no, for real, so that the pollen falls down. You can do that. And actually, people who breed corn like this, that's what they'll do is they'll actually like take the tassel from one, take the tassel from, and the silks from another. All right, anyway. Kids all day long want to grow melons. All right, watermelons, cantaloupes, and all that stuff. It's really hard. It's really hard to grow. All right, why? Because you're trying to make a giant fruit. When we would try to grow these in my school garden, we'd put them at the corner of the raised bed because the vines from there would reach out. And then the custodian would come and take the weed whacker and make sure nothing was allowed to grow outside the bed. It's like, John, no, please, don't. Nope. It didn't look good. Here's the thing, in containers, this is going to take over your whole deck. And so will a pumpkin, so will gourds. Squash too. Squash doesn't vine out and all, but winter squash do. And gourds, and sweet potatoes vine out. If we just back up to the pumpkins one, when I worked at Hart's every summer, our job was to go hoe the pumpkin fields. And so we'd hoe and weed the pumpkin fields. But what Dave did was Dave would plant one pumpkin plant here, and then 20 feet over was the next one. And 20 feet over there was the next row of pumpkins, because each pumpkin plant takes its vines and goes 15 feet out this way, 15 feet out that way, as a, rate it, it's math, okay? Oh my God, I'm teaching the unit circle right now to Algebra 2 students. That's fun, okay. So anyway, that radius, can you imagine that on your deck or your patio or your whatever? It's not that it's impossible, but here's the other thing. Where that pumpkin plant is rooted, its roots also go out 5 feet that way, 6 feet that way, especially for the biggest ones. If you wanted to attempt them, your best bet is to go for the little sugar pumpkins, the itty bitty pumpkins. And if you wanted to do gourds, you do like, 1 or 2 gourd plants, you go with the smaller ones. If you really do you guys hear the caveats of what to try? Now, sweet potatoes are not related to regular potatoes. They're not. They're actually grown a different way. They vine out. They're not related to peppers, eggplants, and tomatoes, like we said. It's its own thing. They're delightful, but they vine out. All right. Cabbage. Well, I said earlier, leafy things do well in containers. That's a big, dense, leafy thing. And if you've ever tried to grow a head of cabbage, to get a head of cabbage that's like even just like nice size, like nice, how nice size is nice size? To get a nice head of cabbage, the plant needs to be really big. You're really going to have like one plant in something like that. The payoff for that, one cabbage plant that you're babying the whole time. Here's the other thing with cabbage is that it doesn't tolerate your neglect. It wants to be in well-watered soil, nutrient dense, and so does broccoli. So does broccoli. You'd think broccoli would be easy, but to get big crowns of broccoli like that, it wants to be growing in the soil, it wants to have consistent moisture and everything. Oh, by the way, if you grow kale plants in containers, didn't we say that was okay? If you let them flower, let them live next spring, they will flower, and the flowers are broccoli. They're just little baby broccolis. And you chop them up and you eat. That's all I've been eating this spring is my kale from last year that went to flower. And and sometimes you're eating them while they have little yellow flowers on them. You're like, I'm eating flowers. And it's like, yeah, that's like my homemade ramen's like made with that. So anyway, so if you didn't know it, cabbage, broccoli, kale, the collard greens, they're all related. They're all part of the same family, but some of them do better with neglect than others. What else? Leeks, such a deep root. Not going to do it. AI that thinks they grow above ground. That's weird. And I already said the citrus trees. They don't belong here in Massachusetts. So asparagus, amazing plant. It's a perennial. You're going to plant an asparagus plant. And you're going to plant lots of them outside in the ground, and you're going to have to wait a year for them to grow up, and then you're going to get little spindly asparagus. You can't pick it yet. It needs to put more energy into roots, grow 3 or 4 years before you get asparagus that's that size, the size of your thumb. And those are the ones that you're picking. So do you really want to baby these in containers for 3 years before they size up? No. Okay, have I convinced you? Yes? All right. And that's where my talk on like perennial plants in containers would also go. Like they belong in the ground. All right. So should you do transplants? I'm going to teach you about soil blocks. Has anybody heard about soil blocks? Oh, you're all new. Okay, good. But it's okay. Drilling and just putting seeds in the ground or direct seeding. What should you do? So this is where I just point you to resources. And so part of thinking about plants is also their needs. Okay, so where do you put your plants? This is a partial picture. It doesn't have all the pictures that are part of the series. I just chose this one because this is the idea of analyzing your yard and being like, oh, these are the shady zones. These are the areas where I should avoid planting. So that's what you should do. You should look at, it's nice and sunny, the sun's nice and high now. You should start looking at your yard in the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, the end of the day, and start mapping out where is it shady, because light is food. Now, I'm not saying that you can't put things in those areas. So what can you put in those shadier areas? It's hard to read this. Remember, you got the code for this presentation later. You can have fun reading things later. But things that need less sunlight are leafy things. Swiss chard, lettuce, parsley, arugula, herbs and lettuce, all right, less light. They don't grow as big. They don't need as much light. Things that need more light, okay, so like these are things that you could plant in a shady spot. They're going to do okay, all right? Things that need more light are things that start to size up. Root crops. We get root crops, broccoli's in the mix. Remember, just because broccoli's here, remember we already said don't grow it in a container. But this is a class where people could leave and also grow in their raised beds too. So I'm putting together lots of resources that you choose to become an expert in. This is the one moment where I should say, once a week, just pick a crop that you like. You're like, I want to grow this now. And just look it up. Become an expert and take notes on that crop that week and like make a little map for it in your head of like, oh, this are its needs. So you'd look for that crop here and imagine its light needs. You'd look for the crop in like other little charts. Let's see, let's see. I got another chart anyway. I don't want to skip through potatoes. Potatoes are important. But become an expert in each little thing. So the things that need the most light are fruiting things. Things that either grow very large plants or need to have, produce fruits, tomatoes and peppers and all that. Those are the ones that you want to give the prime sunny spots to. All right. So yeah, seeds. Seeds grow. You were in kindergarten once, right? All right. You brought home the little seedling and it died. So right, it was in the milk carton, and then mom threw it away later, or dad. I'm the one who was like, Yeah, no. So, I planted it in the garden, honey. It's doing great. So, all right, anyway. Potatoes, if you've never planted potatoes, they're relatively easy. How could you do it in a container? Well, potatoes, has anybody got potatoes that are growing eyes in their garden, in their cabinet already? All right, those are potatoes that want to grow. You can put those in the ground. They're seed. You can buy seed potato, or so you can. Most potatoes from the grocery store, they don't have their eyes sprouting because they're kept in the dark, and there's also a chemical, like not a bad chemical, but like a natural chemical that stops them from sprouting. All right, and then you bring them to your home, and they're not given that anti-sprouting thing anymore, and they're like, I want to grow, and they start to grow. So you could take a big container like this, fill it about halfway up. A big container like this could also be, you know those whiskey barrel things cut in half? Mm-hmm. There's lots of stuff that's like this big. It doesn't have to be this. But fill it up like halfway with soil. Why? Well, the first time you're going to plant them, you only need to plant them, it's like a fist. Plant it about a fist deep. All right, are there better ways to plant potatoes? Yes, but this is the easy way, the fist. All right, so plant one potato here, and then a fist away, plant another potato, and then a fist away, plant another. Do you got room for another potato? I don't know. See if you got room for another fist. All right, and then okay, and then you know. So potato here, that's what I mean. That's your spacing, and about a fist deep. Once the potato. So by the way, these. I know that's gonna happen. These are not roots. That's the roots. These are actually future stems. You can cut the potatoes into smaller pieces, as long as each piece has an eye on it, it'll grow. However, if you cut them up so small, they're not going to have enough energy to really grow vigorously. So you tend to not cut them up too small. How small is small? Like, you wouldn't want to go, I don't know. Yeah, I know. Like half a fist is fine. I know. It's like, yeah, I know. So, all right, anyway. Oh, so why fill it up halfway with soil? Because as the potato plant grows, when it's like this high, you can fill it with more soil until it's up. And the potato plant will then branch out and have multiple layers of potatoes in there. All right, when do you pick potatoes? When the plant is dead. All right, not by your doing. All right, but like when you've done your job keeping the plant alive, and sometime in the summer the plant yellows and withers and dies, that's actually that time to pick the potatoes. And if you've never grown purple potatoes, you can grow the purple ones, the red ones, and the white ones. You got a very patriotic, no, for real, potato salad for. All right, this is soil blocks. We've got garden centers around here, right? Okay, nobody's growing these at the garden centers because it's kind of a hassle. What do you give the people to take it home in? I actually used to sell soil block transplants to people locally. They would bring their own tray, pick out the transplants, put it on their tray, bring it home, and then plant them immediately. It was a great local little thing. But all right, so most transplants are done in these little 6-packs. Nice, easy, okay? But the roots get bound up in them, all right? Because we're waiting for somebody to buy it. Nobody's buying it yet, and they're like, well, it's still alive. They water it, and then you come along, you buy it, the roots are all bound up, and you're like, oh, should I break the root? Yeah, you can break the roots apart, but it's going to stunt its growth. All right, I do want to be an advocate for everybody. Buy a soil blocker. Use the same potting mix that I'm going to tell you to use for this containers is the same potting mix that I use to make soil blocks. All right, and so you use the little press like that. And they're on Amazon now. All right, Ladbrook, this is all linked in the handouts. Ladbrook is the classic one that is like heavy duty made. It's now some of the ones that are coming from China. They're fine, but they're like thinner metals and everything. They're not going to last the life. That's what it looks like. Yeah, you're pressing these out. You see how moist they are? If you were to take a hose and water them right now, they don't need to be watered. All right, they're full of water already. Because what you did was you mixed up a batch. I got videos on YouTube of me like making soil blocks. You can watch those later and everything. Some people are like, oh, my soil blocks fell apart. Here's what you do, is that you put the seed in that while it's wet, you close it up, just, take your fingers, close it up, fine enough, let that tray sit. And as the blocks dry out a bit, they're not drying, but by the time the seed like germinates, you might have needed the water because now the blocks are like dry, but the blocks are now solid. Do you know what I mean? Like they're solidified and they can handle a watering, all right? And so, yeah. I've done this on like a market garden scale and stuff like that. I'm gonna skip that one, focus on this one. So whether you should seed or do things from transplant, whether you're buying transplants or not, they're like everywhere now. Some plants prefer to grow from seed and do well, so you look at a chart like this. You get all your little seed packets, you know, and you're like, okay, this one likes to go in the garden, don't worry about it. This one likes to be done as a transplant. I should focus on these as transplants. So you'll notice that like tomatoes, eggplant, pepper, they are here. They like to be babied. They like to be babied and don't do well in the harsh elements of the outdoors. Something like lettuce, though, is on both lists. Lettuce is on both lists, and it's like, why? Because some lettuce, don't you want to grow some lettuce and just like have it, cut it and eat it? And some lettuce you want to grow to a full head. The ones that you want to grow to a big full head, you baby those, transplants. And the ones where it's just like mesclun mix, where you're just scattering the seeds, well, you're only going to eat it when it's this high anyway. You don't have to worry about babying them. And then things like carrots, grow deep tap roots. Those want to be started direct from seeds. And you could do them direct from seeds right in the containers. Okay, so, all right, when to do this stuff, we're past all this time, but to teach you how to read one of these charts, remember I said some of the green charts were going to come up? This right here, this 0, is whenever your last frost tends to be. All right, 90% of the time, when is your last frost happen? And you're done with frost. After that, this is the safe time to do transplants or direct seed cucumbers. So you could be doing it now. All right, I didn't start my cucumbers weeks ago. I started them now because there's no rush. The soil's not warm enough, blah, blah, blah. Now this chart has told me I can wait. Eggplants and stuff like that, had I started eggplants before, I could do them as a transplant. Notice how eggplants is only on here, but it doesn't say from seed. That's hinting to you that you should be doing that as from transplant only, not from seed. And then you get a chart like this, which helps you early in the season. We see the 0 is there. And so if we're like May, this is the beginning of April, beginning of March, beginning of February, the earliest things that you could grow. And do you see how there's a window on this all the way through February through March? It gives you a big window of time where you're like, if you're like that person who's like, I gotta grow something, well, okay, you could start that, but hold off on the other ones. And every 2 weeks, something opens up and you could be starting something else from seed so that it can transplant at the proper time outside. And if you notice eggplant here, we can't plant it until we're done with frosts, so we don't want to start the seed, you know, until 6 weeks before or so. Does it have to be 6 weeks? No, don't worry, no rush. Do you know when I did my tomatoes? Just this week. I started my tomato seeds. Don't worry, if you forgot to do tomatoes, you haven't done it yet, just do it between now and Memorial Day. You're fine, you're not behind the ball. Good. All right, we're on to the final, all right, second, I'm gonna get a drink. Questions? Yeah.
If you plant the potatoes that have sprouted from the store,
Yeah.
is it okay if they're just like getting softer?
Oh, yeah, they're naturally gonna, yeah.
But like if
They're
you
gonna
can
be,
like squish them, that's
yeah, as long as they're not rotting.
okay.
Yeah, you know what a rotten potato is, yeah. But if they, yeah, they're naturally gonna like lose moisture and you're like not gonna wanna cook them. So plant them.
Okay.
Yeah. Other questions? We move into containers. Okay, good. You're doing well. You've hung in for a long time. This next part goes faster, but okay. So containers, there's lots of different types of containers out there. We already talked about the Square Foot Gardener book, and that book, again, this is pictures from it that help you decide how many plants you can put in a square foot. That can be helpful. So you look at those resources later. There's resources like this online. So when I went online, I found a few resources. I'm like, oh, these are okay, but with caveats. I don't know where these people are, where they think, yeah, we're gonna grow like artichokes in containers and lemongrass in containers and blueberries in containers. But some of the other ones, some of the things that I've already mentioned that you could do. Carrots, they're saying 7-gallon container. And so you look at a 7-gallon container and you're like, why that one? Why that one? Carrots you can plant pretty densely, but this gives them probably the depth that they need. The first thing a carrot seed does is drive a taproot straight down. I think I started talking about carrots and then I forgot to finish. It's the fun one. If you start, you remember the soil blocks thing? If I started carrots from transplants, the taproot would go down, hit the plastic, hit the bottom, and the root wouldn't know what to do. It's as if it hit a rock. In nature, it hits a rock, just tries to go around it, and you get like little wavy carrots. But in a tray, it goes, and then it goes, and it splits. And then if you have children and you plant those little carrots out and then you harvest them, you get little stubby carrots with legs and like little, and they're like, oh my God, that one's got an extra. And like, it's really fun. It's really fun. So anyway, carrots do well in deep containers. All right, and so some of these, you can look at this as a resource, but not all of these are going to be crops that do well in containers. We already said no on melons and pumpkins and all that. But if you're the person who does want to try it, look at that 30-gallon container. This is a 20-gallon container. You're going to need a big container. Like, Massachusetts, you know, one of the local states here to allow the growing of marijuana at home and all that jazz, right? If you look it up, it's going to be big old containers. It's gonna be 10-gallon or more containers for that. That's not what this class is about, though. All right. All right, we move on to this. I did like this one just for some of the visuals. All right, so like a 10-gallon container for tomatoes, I agree with, but I don't agree with the sweet potatoes. So you see how I've already primed your brain to be like cautious about some of this stuff? Be like, oh, I can do it. Some are hard. You can look at this list and go, okay, he's already talked about some of these as good things. The peppers, the cucumbers, great, and that's 5-gallon container or bigger. Good? Good. You look at these resources later, they go down. And you'll also notice fruiting things, big plants, less fruiting things, smaller root croppy plants, leafy things, and the tiniest of rooting plants as you go smaller and smaller. Okay. Yeah. So I do teach an orchard class, backyard, front yard, orchard, and stuff like that. I've only got about an acre of land. And on that acre, I've got about 50 fruit trees. There's a lot you can do in a small space. All right, an acre's not a small space. I also want to recognize that. You know, but there's a lot you can do with a quarter acre, with 1 acre. Using light is food. Do you remember light is food? You can use this model of the forest garden. If you've never heard about it, it's about just planting things of different heights near each other. And when you're planting things, this is why like a perennial garden bed, it's not only does it look better to have plants of different heights in a perennial garden bed, but it's also capturing light at different heights. And you're getting more light from that same space than having everything be one level. So on your back deck or patio, thinking about what are some big plants and little plants that you could nest up close to those bigger plants. Okay, we move on because, you know, and yeah, you could use trellises and stuff like that to get height. Okay, so the types of containers. Where did these things come from? These weren't around, you know, not too long ago. These came from the cannabis industry. All right, so that's where these, all right, what did they need? They needed cheap, inexpensive, good containers that held up and were durable, that would grow indoors, not grow mold and fungi and stuff like that, would breathe and let air into the roots because soil needs to, the roots of plants needs to breathe. It would hold water, would hold soil, and all that jazz. So here's the thing, they're relatively inexpensive. That's why it's like it's a relatively new model. How do you use these? Well, I mean, you fill them up, and if you want to reuse them, just like any pot, you do want to like wash it out before you put something new into it. You can plant year after year. The best practice, though, is to reset all of your containers by washing them out. Do you get that that's a best practice? Are we going to do that? Yes. No, we said we're lazy, right? We say, I looked at because we had this conversation before. No, it's okay. It's a line. All right. All right. It's okay. It's okay. Thank you. I'm not. No. I'm just saying, like, the best practice is to wash it out, soapy water, bleach, or whatever, you know, something like that, like you would with other things. And it's like it's a fabric. It's a, you know. So anyway, blah blah blah. You see what I'm going to do with the strawberries? All right. Now herb garden. Oh my God. And yeah, dump the carrots out, dump the onions out, and all that jazz. Now these containers are on the market. Totally staged photo for potatoes. Do you see that? That's staged. All right. I have had people who have taken this class and they're like, hey, you're talking bad about that. Me and my kids love them. So here's what I'm going to say. My friend, John, who used this, his opened, it got filled with rainwater. The Velcro at the bottom gave out and the whole thing vomited. Blah, all the stuff. So he had a bad experience with it. other folks who have said they like them, they never had that happen to them. So there might be a quality thing. All right, anyway, so those are potato bags. You'll see them all day long. This, garbage, don't buy it. All right, I bought a 2-pack of these things. You saw my garden earlier. Like, it looks pretty, right? It's magical. That's the word. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna plant. This is the one that survived because I didn't use it. So this one, it has these like little grommets. You screw it in, you nail it in and everything. But once this is filled with soil and water, that all falls apart and rips. And do you imagine my disappointment? I had high hopes of like, oh, it's gonna have herbs and flowers and okay. So not everything's a good product. Wait, that's what I want you to have in the back of your head. Wait. Towers like this, great. Just don't go too tall with them. Wind's gonna knock it over. But that's a good design. If anybody's got them, those absolutely work as containers. So we're talking plastic containers that are out there. If you go to Facebook Marketplace, you're gonna find lots of stuff. These are fine. But again, pair up something that likes shallow roots in with that. Those deck rail ones, you pop a screw into your deck rail so it doesn't blow over the wind. But those are great all day long. These are a little bit bigger. Planter boxes like this, okay? All right, they are designed for it. This is designed for indoor use. So you might think buying this, but you see how you fill it up with water? That's great. But if you're starting seeing things with seeds, they don't have roots yet to tap into the water. That's the first problem. The second problem is that doesn't have any drainage. If you put that outside, the rain is gonna fill it up and you can't get the water out. So again, I put it there just to talk about types of containers outside all day long, yes. Old nursery pots and stuff like that, yeah, that's a container ready to go. That's what the nurseries are using, all right? But remember, they got their little click, 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 the fertilizing water system going along there. So we're gonna wanna engineer the soil we put in there. Also clean these out, wash them out, scrub them, because we don't wanna transfer bacteria, mold, fungal diseases that were in the root systems that might not have been affecting the plant that was in there, but could affect the other plants that we plant afterwards. Wood all day long. As you saw my little wooden gutter, thing. What we do want with something like this is it passed the shake test. I like how it has the slats there. The soil's not going to fall through that. Little bit, yes, but not. It's going to settle in, and that's going to let excess water out. That's what I do like about that. Tractor Supply had this on sale for $200. I got in it, shook around, and I was like, yeah, this passes. All right. This one, I don't know if it passed my shake test, but I do like this, the tiered. I like it as a design. All right. Those legs could probably use a little more reinforcement, though. Do you hear me? All I'm doing is critiquing stuff. All right. This is like YouTube reviews here. Okay. All right. So metal all day long. Absolutely. I'm not telling you go out and buy metal containers. I'm saying go find used metal containers that already have rusty holes in the bottom. All right. They're going to need drainage. So you're either popping holes into that, and I'm not saying that. It's wasteful. Don't do that. All right. But if you have rusty old pots and pans, you know what I mean. Buckets and stuff like that. Buckets, that's what I'm looking for. Those can work. They do make metal containers and everything. You know, they're not going to rot. One thing on the wood that I would say is that if you're growing food in it, whether you use pressure treated or not, that's your choice. I'm not using pressure treated lumber on it. I'm going to let the wood's going to rot a little faster. I'm not going to be spending money on cedar because of the cost of it. I actually am fine with using pine, even if it's going to have less of a life. That you make that choice. Go ahead and go cedar if you got the money for it. All right, it's going to look nice. Metal stuff all day long. You can find those. Those are good. All right, so Swamp Yankee Special, absolutely. Yeah, that'll pass. That'll pass. Buckets, food grade buckets and stuff like that. Drill some holes in the bottom. You've got containers that you can use. And you see how you got your 5 gallons or whatever. That's no problem with that. Food grade barrels, sure, yes. I saw somebody posting this, and then I saw this. I'm like, that's a lot of lettuce, and here's what I noticed with this is that those lettuce roots are not tapping into most of the soil. It's kind of not really using it. A better use for this is to cut the barrel in half, use the 2 halves separately. Now you got 2 containers. So that, again, my critique on that. All right, we're on to the third and fourth C here. All right, so the right conditions, setting up the soil. This is all right, so it's okay, I do want to say, it's hard to, everybody has different resources. How many of you do have a compost pile? It's not everybody. All right, but if you do, use your own compost. Great, all day long. Free, cheap, you're making it, okay? How many of you have access to manure piles? Do we got friends with horses? Friends with, okay, no hands. Wow, that's amazing. I live in a different neck of woods than you. That's okay. We got horses down my, that's okay, okay. So like access to manure. So here's the thing, like I've got a rabbit that lives in my house. That's manure. And rabbit manure isn't like chicken manure that is like so strong it'll burn the plants. Rabbit manure can be used right away. Has anybody got rabbits? Okay, you've got an awesome manure source that you could be using, and you could swap that out instead of compost. Okay, so I'm going to show you a recipe that involves compost and potting soil. If we were to take your garden soil, dig it up and put it in here, garden soil is kept airy and fluffy and alive by all the life that's in that soil. The worms, the ants, the bacteria and the fungi, and the root systems that are in there. If we take garden soil and put it in a container, it compresses and it doesn't behave the same way. We can't put it in a container. You're always going to see some kind of potting mix, an engineered mix in a container. That's what I want you to hear. So when you go to the gardens, you got an Ocean State job lot? You got one? Yeah, okay, they're around. I've seen them up in Vermont. That's far from Rhode Island. All right, so anyway, I mention it because they sell some cheap potting soils and stuff like that. And when I go there, I'm like, topsoil, no. Compost mix, sure. They have a manure blend thing, and I'm like, I've tried it. It's not the best. They're all right. But then, like, okay, in general, there's lots of different fertility options. Off the shelf, I'm going to show you a couple things that you can do for general fertility. That's one of them, okay? That's going to add a broad, so what are the ingredients in this? It's not Miracle-Gro. This is like a granule thing. It's dry, it's in it's chicken manure is in there, feather meal, bone meal, rock phosphate, and forgive me for getting the other one. It's a potassium source in there, I'm forgetting. Potash, my God. Okay, anyway, so I'm a bad farmer, I couldn't remember that. Do you hear the wholesome ingredients in that? They are the byproduct of the meat industry, though. All right, so they're not wasting that. That's all right. So you could go down the road of making your own stuff. I'm going to move on. But if you mix those 1, 2, and 3 ingredients in equal amounts, you get something that is roughly equivalent to that. So if you wanted bulk, but just one bag of that, that's going to be fine. Let's move on. Compost. Do you see how that says compost? Blend. Okay, that's not compost. That's a compost potting mix blend. That you could use straight on its own. Okay, right out of the bag. Boom, in there. Many mixes that are, I'm now seeing at Tractor Supply, Home Depot, Lowe's, the big box stores. I'm trying to give you easy things that you could use straight out of the bag and not have to mix with other stuff necessarily, are raised bed mixes that you're now seeing. So raised bed mixes can generally be used, okay? All right, what I'm generally gonna show you is not just straight compost, it's more of something like this. The best bang for your buck, the garden centers. I looked up before I came here, I was like, what garden centers do they have here? I actually wanted to pick up a bag of either that or Pro Mix or something like that. These big bales, they might not have out front. They don't make as much money on them. It's like 60, 65 bucks for that, but it's like 8 bags of mix, small bags of mix compressed into one block. This is the biggest bang for your buck. The 3.8 cubic foot bag, that's what you want to go ask for. Call them up on the phone, do the old timey thing. Hey, do you get 3.8 cubic foot bags of potting mix? Now, that stuff is inert. It doesn't have nutrition in it, but it's going to give us the bulk to fill our container. I have had people be like, can we fill up the container with rocks or something on the bottom? That's commonly done in the floral arrangement, you know, for growing flowers, because the flowers have shallow roots and you don't want to use the whole thing. You know, you have a beautiful ceramic pot and you don't want to fill the whole thing with soil. Yes, you can do that. We're talking about tomatoes and stuff like that where we want to fill the whole thing. We need bulk. So bulk, but it doesn't have nutrition. Easy mix? Okay, it's in words. Nobody wants to read. Okay, no. Pictures, right? Pictures? All right. 1, 2, 3 ingredients. How much? How much? All right, does it have to be this? Does it have to be that and that? No, 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 I'll show you other things. In general, what are we talking about? Some bulky potting mix, all right? And then we're looking for some sort of compost. Now, I know this is another compost blend, but I'm having it substitute in for your compost pile or a bag of compost. And then a general purpose fertilizer. This is going to give that higher level of nutrition. This is going to give us a broad spectrum of stuff in life and micronutrients. This is going to give us the fluffy air root system that we need, and it's also going to give us the water retention that we need. Are we hearing the three things? And why? The why? All right, and the ratio. I'm a math teacher, okay? The ratio. You get your double-wheeled wheelbarrow. If you don't have one, you'll never go back. You'll never tip that thing over. It's amazing. Get it, all right? Or you get a mixing pan. Get a mixing pan, all right? Whether you're making a small batch or a big batch, you get the hoe out and you're mixing it. If I were to use a bucket as my measuring tool, this is the ratio I would use. 4 buckets of a mix like this. And by the way, if I were to fill up 4 buckets, that would actually be half of this bag. That's a lot of mix in that bag. All right, so 4 of those, one bucket of this, and 1 cup of this. That's the ratio. What if you don't want to make a big batch? Go with 1 bucket, a quarter bucket, and a quarter cup. Is that easy enough to remember? You've got your now, this is going to work for flowers, for herbs, and for veggies that aren't heavy feeding veggies. All right, for things like tomatoes that might want an extra kick, for your flowers that might want an extra kick. You might start to look into other amendments and stuff. Okay, let's go in. It gets everybody going. Okay, so those are the things. Here's other stuff. Okay, but I'm just going to skip through that. All right, so other potting mix things. These count as like bulk mixes, but again, a blend like this could just be used as is because it has that mixed into it. So if you're seeing these on the shelf, these are all just general good bulk mixes. Coir, you could use coir. I'm going to skip that and that. The blend we already talked about, another blend. Earthworm castings counts as a compost. I actually saw a bag of that at Walmart. I was like, didn't know you sold that. Okay, cool, that's fine. So earthworm castings counts as compost. Mushroom compost counts as compost. All right, so those are all things. And these are 3 products off the shelf that are equivalent to this. Organic certified nutrition, that's broad spectrum nutrition. We got our 524, something like that, low numbers. Petrochemical fertilizers that are so strong that will chemically burn your plants. You have to dilute those down. Those tend to have numbers that are greater than 10. All right, they're like a 10, 10, 10 or whatever. Those are, like steroids. All right, you can choose to go down that road. I go. So this is, yeah, that's going to be good. These low numbers are not so. If you mess up and you put in like twice as much, you're not going to chemically burn your plants. It's natural materials. You get what I mean with that? It's safe. That's what I'm trying to push. Safe stuff that you're not going to mess up with. All right, we're right towards the end. Remember those 3 things you could mix and also make your own mix. And I'm going to skip that, that's advanced. Some people ask about that. All right, we're right at the last end. So we're right at the end of this. So water, fertility, and reset. I already talked about how water is the most important. One of the light is food. Light is food. The next thing is water. And especially if you're starting seedlings off, it's not that you want to keep it like completely wet all the time, but you don't want that layer where the seedlings are to completely go bone dry. All right, so you want them, so set alarms. All right, use your phone, set alarms to water. What is that like? So I have an alarm on my phone when I'm teaching these classes that goes off at 9 o'clock at night because I usually get home late from these classes. I also have an alarm on my phone that goes off around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And then I have one that goes off sometime around 6:30 in the morning. Those are my times in my schedule that are like, oh, yep, did I water the plants? Did I look at the plants to see if they need to be watered? That's my, sometimes I'm like, I know they're watered, they're fine, and I just leave. Other times I'm like, oh, almost forgot. And I drop what I'm doing and I water them. Because if you leave for work and the plants were dry, by the time you come back, they're dead. And then you're like, oh no. So the same thing, you got somebody taking care of your plants while you go on vacation. Try to get a neighbor who can come over a couple times a day. Containers dry out more than a garden. You're going to need a twice a day check. When is the best time to water? Okay, I learned from Joyce Hart, best time to water is in the morning because they use the water for photosynthesis throughout the day. Does that mean that you don't water in the evening? If they need water before you go to bed, go ahead and give them water. But if you've got a choice when to water, water in the morning. Okay. Another thing is that if you're holding the watering wand and water's pouring out, do you know what that's actually also doing? It's pulling nutrients out of the soil. The marijuana growers do that intentionally. They will flush their system out by flushing out nutrients that then forces the flowering of their plants. All right, yeah, okay, it's all right. But here's the thing, is that if the nutrients that you put in here, remember the little scoop of everything and the stuff? If you're sitting there with the watering wand and you're just like letting it come out, all right, if we get a lot of rain, that tends not to pull out all of the nutrients from it, but that plus your excess watering, that could. And that could mean maybe you come in with like a little more of that. So the best practice is to dump out your soil and use new soil. That's the best practice. Okay? Do we all do that? No, we're lazy. Is that all right? So, all right, so what else could you be doing? So the best practice is to do that and to compost it and use it in some other part of your garden and reset your containers with that fresh mix, that fresh nutrients. Let's say you did want to reuse containers and the soil that was in it. What you're going to want to do is plant a different crop family into that pot. Because the tomato plant that was growing in there uses a certain set of nutrients. You ate those nutrients and pooped them in the toilet and never brought it back to the pot. We don't do it. We don't do that. We don't compost our manure and put it back into the system. All right? We don't. So the nutrients that the tomato plant took out didn't get replaced. So you are either guessing what to replace in that by putting in compost, that's fine, and a little bit of that dried fertilizer, and mixing that all in, and you should be doing that, but then also planting a different type of plant in there. So plant another big type of plant in there, or plant your carrots in there or something like that. The farmers, so when I was growing a market garden for people, I had a 10-year crop rotation. That means I had my farm divided up into 10 plots, and I started tomatoes here. The next year they were grown in this area, the next year grown in that area. And by the 10th year they were at the 10th spot, and the 11th year they were back in the original spot. And that stops soil-borne diseases. The home gardener takes their garden, splits it into 4, and does their tomatoes here this year, tomatoes there next year, the year after, 4th year, 5th year, they're back here. Why? Because, and I'm saying tomatoes, because tomatoes are a classic one that have soil-borne diseases, pests and viruses, tomato viruses that actually live in the soil. And if you plant a new plant in that soil, you're planting it where an old virus was. And it creates a buildup of those viruses in that same soil. So all right, so that's a little bit, oh yeah, so that's crop rotation. I think we're about there. We're about there. All right, so, you know, there's a thank you. All right, next one. You're welcome. You can kill it. That's up to you, or we can keep going. I got bonus stuff for you for anybody who wants to hang around. You got legs, you can leave. I take no offense. All right, but, remember how I said if you got heavy feeding things and you want to keep them alive? All right, and you know, so what you can do is foliar sprays. Foliar means spraying fertilizer on the foliage, not in the soil. You're putting it right at the surface where photosynthesis happens. It doesn't have to take the nutrients from the soil, transport it up, and bring it to the leaves. You're putting it right on the leaves. It absorbs it in the leaves and uses it efficiently. You would do this weekly or bi-weekly. I'm on a bi-weekly schedule because I'm lazy, but that's okay. So what is it? You're using stuff like this that smells like seaweed and fish near your house. It works, but or you're using that, or you're using this stuff that doesn't smell like seaweed or fish, or you're making your own compost tea. They make little bags that you can brew. That is a waste, $36 for that. If you got your own compost pile or your bunny manure, you can use your bunny manure to make your own compost tea. You soak the compost in, and you either strain it out or whatever, or you could spray it. So you can water them with a watering can, but a sprayer like that is what we're looking for, spraying right, you know, a little pump sprayer spraying it right on the leaves. And if you want to geek out later, look up aerobic composting in teas, and you would use a paint strainer to strain out the compost. These are the materials that you would need. You would let it sit overnight, and it creates a really nutrient-dense organic tea that you spray on your plants. If you don't want to go the route of buying stuff. Right. Okay, I got a couple more, okay? Okay, a couple more bonus ones. All right, wind exposure sucks. All right, row covers, that's what you need. All right, it's like an infomercial. All right? But wait, there's more. All right, but all right, these are what market farmers are using and bringing veggies to your markets, your farmers markets early in the season. They are covering their crops with row covers to keep insects that would lay eggs off of them, but to protect them from the wind. So it's multiple purposes and everything. You can hold them down with bricks and sticks, and I need to make a rhyming book with this, but I only got bricks and sticks and pins and bars and stuff like that. All right, it's called a floating row cover. As the plants grow up, they push the fabric up and they just live underneath the fabric. It lets 90% of the light through, because light is food, and it lets the rain through. All right. Now, could you be using this in containers? Yes, you would cut them into smaller pieces, but that's a bonus for you. The side-by-side comparisons, it's amazing. My favorite tools, a couple of oh, you already heard that one. All right, at the end of every hose should have a shut-off valve, so you don't have to go turn it off over there. You shut it off right here. And then the other thing is, at the end of every hose should be a little quick connect, and at the faucet should be a quick connect. At the end, so you disconnect your hoses and connect and reconnect your watering wands and all that jazz. And by the way, when we talk about watering wands, that's what you want. You need that has a fine rose head. That's the one. All right, it breaks the water up. And that's what the professionals use. This is garbage. All right, you know that you got one, and it does. You know that the jet on it stinks. And you know the shower on it stinks, and so get the one that showers the best and breaks the waters up. It helps it go into the soil. So those are my favorite tools. Also, no bending and everything with the watering wand. And dealing with critters, you can look at these later. These are books. If you're having a particular problem, these are some books that are the organic ones that I use to solve a particular problem with the Colorado potato beetle or the blah, 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 blah. You got those weird bean questions that I talked about before? Find it in here, all right, in one of those books. These can work if you're rotating them around to keep away, all right, prey species, squirrels. It's working for me for squirrels. And if you've got deer, I'm sure you have deer, don't you? Yes. Now, you probably got bear too. Do you got bear too? I got nothing for you for bear. All right. But deer, that ain't going to do anything for deer, but you tend to either go up or you go out. Netting can be used with deer, but can't be used with moose. Moose just take everything wherever they want to go. All right. But netting can be used with deer, or you do the wire method. You go 8 feet, 9 feet high with wires spaced out. Deer aren't going to jump into that. They're not dumb. They're not going to, especially put little flags on it. Or you can go the way where you go. You go out and you do. If you had a market garden, you would go out with the fencing instead of up, and create a double-walled fencing. I'm going to move on because that's the real end of it. And if you want to buy one of these bundles here, I take PayPal, Venmo. I trust you. You can just send me a check in the mail. I'll trust that you're going to send it to me. And these are the other classes I teach. Is it Claire? Claire? No. Christy, I'm so sorry. That's on film. There we go. I did it this time. That's my blooper. Sorry, Christy. Let Christy know what you're interested in. That's the real end. Thank you for coming.